Former President Donald Trump assumed that a few early morning tweets could silence Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett, but she responded with a powerful blower, $100 million lawsuit. Now shaking the political core of Washington, it all began with a set of 3 posts made from Trump's official X, formerly Twitter, account just after 6 a.m. on a Thursday. In no time, the tweets spread like wildfire. In them, Trump directly named Jasmine Crockett, accusing her of corrupt financial activities, alleged connections with foreign entities, and misusing campaign money for her own luxury. The tone was aggressive and undeniably personal. One post stated, "Jasmine Crockett is a fraud, bought and paid for. Look into her foreign ties. It's shocking what she's getting away with. Why is no one talking about it?" What made this even more disturbing was the complete lack of any backstory. There had been no prior public disagreement between the two, no committee debates, no heated exchanges, nothing to show that Crockett was even on Trump's radar. Yet now, the former president had blasted out damaging, unverified claims to over 90 million followers. No evidence was shared, no investigations were cited. That only fueled questions about why the tweets were sent in the first place. Soon hashtags like #Crockett, exposed and #Trump targets women started trending, some supporting Trump, others defending Crockett. News networks picked up the story almost instantly. Conservative outlets echoed Trump's accusations without fact-checking, while progressive platforms defended Crockett and questioned Trump's motive. But what truly stood out was the timing. Crockett had recently gone viral for her strong questioning in a televised congressional hearing, where she challenged one of Trump's close allies about campaign finance. Many felt this attack was revenge disguised as criticism. Inside Crockett's circle, emotions quickly turned from confusion to fear. Her team started receiving disturbing messages. Within 24 hours, they submitted one threatening email as court evidence. It warned her to watch her back and accused her of robbing the American people. Capitol Police were alerted. Cybersecurity was immediately upgraded. Crockett even cancelled a scheduled town hall for safety reasons. While politicians are used to online backlash, this felt different. It came from the highest level of government. As one legal expert said on MSNBC, this wasn't just a tweet. It was a digital megaphone pointed at a sitting member of Congress with very real consequences. By the evening, some lawmakers, mainly Democrats, spoke out, calling Trump's tweets dangerous and unpresidential. Still, Trump doubled down. He posted again, "Crockett is part of the problem. Corrupt, weak-owned. I said what I said." Since there was no real investigation underway and no credible evidence backing Trump's claims, the burden fell on Crockett to act. But she didn't respond with a tweet. She was preparing something far more serious: federal lawsuit. The fallout from Trump's initial tweets was immediate and deeply personal. Crockett's office turned into a crisis zone. Instead of handling normal tasks, her staff worked to manage the wave of hateful messages, pouring in, many repeating Trump's exact phrases. Some accused her of treason. Others made threats. One voicemail simply said, "Traitor, you'll get what's coming." By midday, Capitol Police were again contacted. Crockett's security detail was increased. Her staff had never experienced anything like this. The threats weren't just noise, they were coordinated, hostile, and repeated. The most terrifying part: many of the threats sounded genuine. Trump's words weren't treated as opinions by his followers, they were believed as fact. No sources, no documents, yet complete trust. Phones rang nonstop at her Dallas district office. Her aides were insulted, accused of shielding a criminal. On social media, old photos of Crockett were twisted into conspiracy posts. People falsely claimed she was being federally investigated. Though untrue, the rumor spread quickly and became impossible to stop. Her family was affected too. Her mother received a handwritten letter at home, accusing Crockett of stealing America's future. It came with a printed meme and a threat: she'll pay for what she's done. By that night, her lawyers had started collecting evidence, screenshots, voicemails, threats. A timeline was built. Her apartment address in D.C. was leaked under a Trump tweet, and her security team advised her to leave immediately. Behind closed doors, some colleagues texted support. A few younger members of Congress privately admitted fear. "If he can do this to Jasmine, what stops him from doing it to me?" one said anonymously to a journalist. Yet, many stayed publicly silent, especially Republicans. Whether it was fear of backlash or political strategy, their silence was noticeable. To Crockett, it spoke volumes. Still, she said nothing online. No reaction. No indirect tweets. No Instagram video. She stayed offline for 36 hours. "I'm not going to post, I won't protect me," she reportedly told her chief of staff. "I need something stronger." That something was legal action. Her team knew the public would move on quickly, but a lawsuit could keep the truth at the center. By the next morning, threats continued. One longtime aide cried after opening an email filled with fake images meant to shame and scare Crockett. That was the breaking point. By Friday afternoon, her legal team had a working draft of a defamation lawsuit. Every tweet was cited. Every threat was recorded. The case was clear. The former president used his platform to spread false, damaging claims without concern for truth. Those lies had real-world consequences. Crockett hadn't wanted to sue, but as she told her attorneys, "He used his words to make me a target. I won't ignore that." It wasn't about politics. It was about safety and justice. The threats didn't disappear. But Crockett wasn't just defending herself anymore, she was going on offense. By Saturday morning, she ended her silence. In a packed press conference in Washington, D.C., Crockett entered with her legal team and 2 fellow congresswomen. No smiles, no waving. She stood at the podium and began speaking calmly and clearly. "Let me be clear. The President of the United States used his power and platform to spread cruel, dangerous lies about me. Those lies have put my life, my staff, and my family in danger. I won't be silent." Reporters remained quiet as she detailed the events, the tweets, the threats, the cancelled events, the police involvement. She didn't exaggerate. The truth was enough. "I've spent my career fighting for justice and transparency," she said. "What the president did wasn't just wrong, it was a calculated attack, based only on political revenge and personal cruelty." She looked directly into a CNN camera. "And now, he's going to be held accountable." She stepped back. Her lawyer stepped forward. In careful legal language, he confirmed that Crockett had filed a federal defamation lawsuit that morning. It stated that Trump knowingly made false, damaging claims that led to real harm and threats of violence. But perhaps most importantly, the lawsuit argued that these weren't just opinions or political statements. They were presented as facts by someone with the world's biggest microphone. The lawsuit argued that the country's most influential political profile had posted claims that were clearly false, and because of that, it fulfilled the strict legal standard of actual malice. The press conference itself lasted a little more than 17 minutes. Crockett didn't take any questions. As she left, she gave a slight nod to reporters and exited through a side door. But her message had already started to spread across the nation. By that same afternoon, her statement was playing across major networks. MSNBC aired the entire press conference. CNN hosted a legal discussion, evaluating the case's strength. Even Fox News, typically supportive of Trump, ran a toned-down segment admitting that the tweets had no evidence and might actually create serious legal risk for the president. Crockett's legal team started receiving unexpected outreach. Former federal prosecutors, civil rights lawyers, and even some Republican legal experts privately admitted that her case appeared strong. Online conversations began to shift. Though some Trump supporters stood by him, many others, especially moderates and independents, started asking why the president would go after a relatively new congresswoman with such detailed and unsupported accusations. Public figures weighed in too. Former Secretary of State Hillary Clinton posted, "No woman, especially one in Congress, should ever have to deal with this level of abuse. I stand with Jasmine Crockett." AOC reposted Crockett's statement and wrote, "This isn't just defamation, it's a misuse of power." The most surprising response came from Republican Senator Lisa Murkowski, who told reporters, "This is beneath the presidency. Attacking other elected officials like this doesn't help the American people. It only fuels division and fear." Meanwhile, the lawsuit itself was drawing huge attention. The legal filing contained screenshots of Trump's tweets, evidence of threats and harassment, and expert statements from digital investigators linking the surge in online hate to within minutes of Trump's posts. The evidence laid out a clear timeline of cause and effect that was hard to ignore. Yet Crockett stayed calm. She didn't go on a press tour or flood the media. She made one more appearance, a Sunday morning NPR interview, where she explained her motives. "This isn't about headlines. It's about safety. It's about doing what's right. And it's about showing that not even the president is beyond being held accountable." The interview spread quickly, mostly because of her steady tone and refusal to act like a victim. She wasn't asking for pity, she was demanding justice. In a political environment often dominated by drama and loud voices, Crockett's calm and focused approach stood out. She didn't fire back with insults or act like a media figure. She filed a lawsuit. And for the first time since the tweets, the national conversation had shifted away from what Trump had said to what Jasmine Crockett was doing in response. The official complaint was submitted on Saturday at 8 a.m. to the U.S. District Court in Washington, D.C. It was 42 pages long, carefully prepared by Crockett's legal team, and listed one defendant, Donald J. Trump, in his role as sitting president. The core allegation was defamation with actual malice. The complaint focused on 3 tweets from Trump's verified X, formerly Twitter account, each accusing Crockett of crimes, foreign loyalty, and financial wrongdoing. The lawsuit said all 3 tweets were false, had no basis in fact, and were intended to cause harm. The filing outlined a timeline showing Trump's tweets were followed almost immediately by a spike in threats directed at Crockett. It included screenshots, server records, and details linking organized online attacks to far-right groups that had quickly spread Trump's posts. The legal claim rested on 3 main arguments. False factual claims. The tweets weren't framed as opinion, but presented as factual allegations of criminal behavior and corruption. But there was no proof or formal investigation supporting them. Reckless disregard for truth. Trump offered no evidence. And the lawsuit noted that no U.S. agency, not the DOJ, not the FEC, had ever even questioned Crockett's financial records. Intent to cause harm, based on the tweet's timing, wording, and personal tone. The suit alleged Trump's motive wasn't public service, but personal revenge. Targeting a congresswoman who had recently challenged his ally during a public hearing. Crockett's legal team also submitted declarations from her staff, Capitol Police reports, digital security reviews, and messages from citizens. One message she got the night of the tweets said, "You think being in Congress keeps you safe? Think again." All of this evidence aimed to prove that Trump's words weren't harmless. They led to real and dangerous consequences. And anyone could have predicted that. The lawsuit even prepared for the common defense of presidential immunity. Crockett's lawyers argued that Trump's posts weren't tied to his official duties, but were personal attacks. Legal precedent on that issue is unclear, but they were ready to argue that insulting a Congress member on social media over false claims isn't part of any president's job. One of the most talked about parts of the lawsuit was the amount, $100 million. The number wasn't random. It represented not just the damage to Crockett's reputation and safety, but also aimed to send a message that powerful people using social media to falsely attack political opponents must face consequences. As the documents went public, legal experts started reacting. One former federal prosecutor, Joyce Vance, called the lawsuit carefully crafted and strong. Another legal analyst on PBS said, "This isn't for show, it's precise." Crockett's lead attorney, Marcus Callahan, declined to give detailed plans, but said they were ready for court or settlement. "We're fully prepared," he said. But this is about accountability, not attention. The White House issued a brief statement later that day. The president will respond legally. These claims are without merit. No apology. No retraction. The tweets were still online as of Sunday morning. That detail caught attention. Some analysts argued it could hurt Trump's future defense. Keeping the tweets public showed he didn't care about their possible damage. Crockett's lawyers included updated screenshots proving the posts were still being shared, liked, and used to justify ongoing harassment. Political news channels were analyzing the lawsuit live. Was this the start of new digital defamation law? Would courts treat the president's words online differently? How would Trump respond, legally or otherwise? For Crockett, those questions didn't matter. The lawsuit had been filed. Her legal argument was solid. She wasn't chasing news coverage. She was building a case, tweet by tweet, threat by threat, document by document. And Trump's legal clock had already started ticking. By Monday, less than 3 days after the filing, new material was added to the case. Crockett's team submitted a new batch of evidence to the court, making the claim even stronger. The new submission included a detailed minute-by-minute timeline. From the moment Trump's first tweet was posted, there was chaos. According to Times metadata, the first hateful message aimed at Crockett came just 9 minutes after Trump hit send. From that moment, things escalated fast. The digital forensics experts hired by Crockett broke it down. In the first hour, over 600 tweets or replies called her a traitor, corrupt, or a foreign agent. In the first 24 hours, there were more than 23 threats across platforms like X, Facebook, YouTube, and even private messages. Within 48 hours, her personal email, which had never been shared publicly, was targeted in a hacking attempt, traced to a foreign IP. Every threat was saved, labeled, and sorted by level of danger. Crockett's lawyers were showing that this wasn't just about words. It was about a pattern, a tweet, followed by online hate, with real-world risks. One of the scariest pieces of evidence was an audio file, a voicemail left for a staff member. In it, a man accused Crockett of stealing from the country and said she would be punished like traitors were in the old days. He ended the call with, "You think we won't find you? We will." Screenshots from far-right forums were also included. Some users talked about doxing her. One even suggested attacking her in person. Another posted a manipulated photo of her, meant to incite fear, with a crosshair image placed over her face. One post described her home state and district in detail, urging patriots in Texas to go pay her a visit. These weren't just random internet trolls. As per the forensic investigators, a large portion of the activity came from organized networks previously connected to online harassment efforts, especially ones targeting women of color in public positions. Crockett's legal team went beyond online proof. They also included police reports from Washington, D.C. and Dallas, where her family had reported receiving threatening letters and packages. One padded envelope, caught by her staff and reported to Capitol Police, held a photo of Crockett with a red X drawn over it. It also contained a printed note saying, "Fake your smile now, we're watching." In the lawsuit, there was also a signed statement from one of her aides, who explained how much the threats impacted their office work. According to that declaration, all public services were paused for 2 full business days, because the entire team had to focus on safety and reporting these threats. Another statement came from a cybersecurity expert who had been monitoring online presence even before this incident. His report showed a huge and unusual spike in threatening activity that happened right when Trump's tweets were posted. His conclusion: that level of intense hate wasn't a coincidence, it was directly tied to the former president's tweets. Crockett's team also challenged Trump's actual claims. His tweets accused her of financial crimes and foreign connections. So, her lawyers attached official documents from the Federal Election Commission showing no violations or investigations. They even included her full tax returns and financial disclosures, all of which were clean, with no hidden money or shady assets. In short, Crockett wasn't just arguing that Trump lied. She argued that his lies led to real, targeted attacks meant to intimidate her. And every document made that argument stronger. Soon, major media outlets took notice. Legal experts began to praise how solid and detailed her legal foundation was. On MSNBC, constitutional lawyer Kimberly Aikenstore said, "This is more than just holding someone accountable. It could set a new standard for how courts treat online defamation by a public official." Meanwhile, Trump had nothing to say. No tweets, no interviews, no press events. But each new piece of evidence made the lawsuit harder to ignore. Inside the courthouse, the stack of proof kept growing, now including audio recordings, internal warnings, security reports, and expert digital analysis. Outside, people began to understand the real damage. This was no longer political drama, it was about cause, effect, and undeniable harm. By midweek, Crockett's lawsuit had become more than just her personal defense, became a national conversation. Support poured in for the Congresswoman. Inside the Capitol, the tone changed. In a rare act of unity, several Democratic and independent lawmakers stood beside her at the steps of the Rayburn House building. They gave short but powerful messages of support. Representative Ayanna Pressley said firmly, "This isn't politics. It's about safety, truth, and abuse of power." Jasmine was targeted, and it was intentional. She stood beside Representatives Jamie Raskin, Ilhan Omar, and Ro Khanna. They warned that if the president's digital attacks weren't stopped now, it would become normal in politics. Raskin called it a test of constitutional limits on presidential speech. Omar said this was political violence, carried out through reputation destruction. But support wasn't only coming from lawmakers. Outside of Washington, national groups stood with Crockett. The NAACP Legal Defense Fund released a statement praising her bravery, saying the tweets weren't just one-time comments, they were part of a pattern of attacking outspoken Black women in leadership. The National Council of Negro Women and Emily's List also voiced their support. Emily's List even offered help with media outreach and public awareness. They said, Jasmine Crockett is standing not just for herself, but for every woman ever told to stay silent when abused. Legal scholars and academic institutions also started weighing in, not with politics, but from a civil rights lens. The Brennan Center for Justice published a detailed article analyzing how this case could shape First Amendment law, presidential legal protections, and modern definitions of online defamation. Their takeaway: this lawsuit could lead to new legal standards on how elected officials use their online platforms. On college campuses, student groups hosted Words Matter events, using Crockett's case for discussion. At Howard University, law students filled an auditorium to debate the case's importance. When asked why the case struck such a chord, one student answered, "Because this is real. It's not a political ad. She's being attacked for speaking up, and it started from the top." Even social media started to shift. Hashtags that once spread falsehoods like #Crockett exposed or #Crockett is corrupt were now overtaken by her supporters. They shared clips from her speeches, explained the lawsuit, and posted personal messages of encouragement. New hashtags began trending. #We stand with Jasmine and #protect Black woman, especially among activists and public figures. Celebrities joined too. Actress Viola Davis tweeted, "This is the cost of truth-telling in public. I stand with Jasmine Crockett." Taraji P. Henson shared her NPR interview with the caption, "Courage, grace, strength, period." Most powerfully, Michelle Obama posted on Instagram, "When power is used to intimidate instead of serve, we must speak. When words endanger instead of lead, we must resist. I'm proud of Congresswoman Crockett for standing strong." That post went viral, shared millions of times in a single day. Crockett herself remained quiet online. She tweeted just once, "I see you. I hear you. I appreciate every one of you." Her team confirmed that she was focused on reviewing more filings and preparing her next legal steps. Not tweets. Her office also had to expand to handle the flood of support. Messages poured in, emails, voicemails, and letters from across the country. Many came from women in politics or survivors of online threats. They all said the same thing: "Thank you for not giving up." The lawsuit had just started. Trump had not filed an official response yet. But one thing was crystal clear: Crockett was not alone. She had sparked something much bigger than herself, a national call for accountability that couldn't be dismissed as political noise. And with every supporter behind her, the power of her case grew both in court and in the public eye. Meanwhile, the White House kept quiet. Despite rising news coverage and growing bipartisan support, President Trump said nothing. No interviews, no press events. Even the original tweets that caused the uproar were still live on his X account, touched, uncorrected, and just as explosive as ever. This silence wasn't due to lack of care. Sources close to the situation said it was a calculated decision. Behind closed doors, Trump's advisors were split. His longtime political team wanted him to fight back, spinning the case as another witch hunt and a threat to free speech. But others, especially those with legal experience, were alarmed. According to two people familiar with the White House counsel's office, Trump's lawyers were worried as soon as the lawsuit dropped. The concern wasn't just the accusations, it was the evidence. Early reports included audio threats, digital tracking, and police complaints. Crockett wasn't just filing a defamation case, she was building a timeline. With Trump at the center, an internal memo from one of Trump's lawyers reportedly said, "There is no legal precedent for a defamation lawsuit this big against a sitting president, but the danger is very real." Inside the White House communications team, the mood shifted. At first, they thought the story would fade. But by Wednesday, they realized it was gaining momentum. Trump's press secretary, Lisa Michaels, had not yet addressed the public. Reporters finally had a chance to ask questions during a short daily press briefing. When directly asked about the lawsuit, the response was clear: "The president has no comment at this time. We are confident this issue will be handled through the appropriate legal process." When pushed again on whether the president stood by the tweets, spokesperson Michaels offered a vague statement: "The president freely expresses his opinions, which is his constitutional right. Beyond that, I have nothing further to add." But cracks were beginning to show internally. Inside the White House, staffers were quietly preparing for a possible legal battle, one that could involve subpoenas, public testimony, and depositions from senior officials. The main concern wasn't necessarily losing in court. Rather, it was the legal process itself. It could expose private records, communication logs, and timelines the administration would rather keep hidden. A key issue began to rise. Who was involved in crafting the original tweets? Was it solely Trump? Were advisors consulted? Did campaign members have a role? These questions, if raised in court, could expose weaknesses far beyond just this lawsuit. Meanwhile, conservative media began to show signs of unease. While far-right commentators quickly defended Trump and attacked Crockett, more mainstream conservative figures began to keep their distance. Fox News anchor Brett Baier aired a detailed segment evaluating the legal strength of the lawsuit, stating, "This isn't a case that goes away easily. It's detailed, specific, and backed by documentation." The Wall Street Journal released an editorial urging the White House to treat the case seriously and warned that dismissing it could lead to significant reputational harm. In Congress, Trump's allies mostly stayed silent. A few extreme loyalists brushed the lawsuit off as political drama, but major GOP senators and House members avoided addressing it at all. That silence said everything. In legal discussions, presidential immunity was floated as the likely defense, but even that argument was uncertain. The Justice Department has defended sitting presidents from civil lawsuits when actions are tied to official duties. But this situation was different. Were Trump's tweets part of his official responsibilities? Or were they personal attacks from a private account even? If that account was tied closely to the presidency, the blurry line made even experienced legal advisors uneasy. On Crockett's side, the lack of a clear White House response only helped their case. If he had proof, he would have posted it, her lawyer Marcus Callahan told the press. If he had a defense, we'd have seen it. But all we get is silence because the facts are on our side. And that silence, it was starting to make noise. By the end of the week, it was clear the lawsuit wasn't fading. It was changing the entire conversation. The White House could no longer pretend this was a minor media storm. What they tried to ignore had now become unavoidable. The lawsuit went viral, dominating major news channels, digital platforms, political shows, and podcast roundtable. It was no longer just trending, it had become the headline. With that visibility came a change in tone. This wasn't just seen as partisan drama, it was being treated like a major legal, constitutional, and cultural case. CNN ran a full evening segment titled The Crockett Complaint. Host Abby Phillip interviewed legal experts, digital rights advocates, and former congressional staffers. "This isn't just political noise," Phillip said. "It's reputational warfare." MSNBC went further. Host Joy Reid dedicated a full hour to analyzing the tweet language, the timing of the posts, and the digital abuse that followed. Lawyer Marcus Callahan appeared for a live interview, staying calm and clear. "This isn't about politics," he said. "It's about the abuse of power to cause harm. That's not free speech, that's defamation." Even conservative networks were starting to take it seriously. While some hosts tried to claim Crockett was exaggerating, Fox News legal contributors admitted that ignoring this lawsuit would be risky. Former judge and Fox contributor Andrew Napolitano said, "If the president had simply disagreed with her politics, that's fair. But accusing someone of crimes and foreign ties without proof, that's defamation and dangerous." Print media joined in. The New York Times featured a front-page article titled, "Can a President Be Sued for Online Lies?" It explored past cases and explained how Crockett's lawsuit stood out for its clarity and evidence. The Washington Post published a detailed profile of Crockett, calling her a principled lawmaker who had earned quiet respect long before the lawsuit. It also highlighted her past as a civil rights lawyer and her push for financial transparency in Congress, ironically, the opposite of what Trump accused her of. Political outlets like Politico and Axios focused on White House panic. Staffers admitted they hadn't expected Crockett to respond so aggressively, nor to get such strong public support. One anonymous aide said, "We didn't realize how big this would get. Now we're hoping it doesn't become an election year issue." Online platforms exploded with interest. BuzzFeed News published a simple, explicable, breaking down what defamation means and why this case matters. Vice published an article titled, "When Tweets Cross the Line, The Legal Stakes of Crockett v. Trump," which was read by millions in the first 48 hours. But the biggest impact, the lawsuit shifted the national conversation about digital responsibility. Podcasts like Pod Save America and The Daily ran entire episodes exploring how powerful figures use social media to attack public servants. Civic tech groups hosted live streams about online harassment and accountability. And in the middle of it all, Jasmine Crockett's public profile rose, but in an unexpected way. She wasn't giving fiery speeches or selling merchandise. Her calm, measured presence became part of the story. She gave just 2 interviews, one with NPR, one with PBS focused purely on policy. No personal attacks. Her message was simple. This isn't about myths, about safety, truth, and accountability. When people in power speak lies that cause harm, they must be held responsible. This quiet approach stood in sharp contrast to Trump's usual media style. While the former president stayed unusually quiet, his allies in media struggled to mount a united defense. Some said it was just political speech. Others accused Crockett of chasing headlines. But none of those messages stuck. The narrative had already moved on. The lawsuit had become a test of how seriously Americans value the protection of public officials from dangerous lies, even when the lies come from the most powerful office in the country. And as more women, especially black women, shared their experiences of online abuse, Crockett's case began to feel bigger than just legal paperwork. Felt like a turning point. As the lawsuit gained even more momentum, Capitol Hill turned into a divided battlefield, not just legally, but politically. The impact of Trump's posts on Congresswoman Crockett now reached lawmakers, donors, advocacy groups, and voters. On the Democratic side, there was full support. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries issued a strong statement, calling Trump's tweets a misuse of power and a disgrace to Congress. Crockett is showing real courage, he wrote. She's defending not just herself, but the integrity of our democracy. The Congressional Black Caucus, where Crockett holds a leadership role, released a united letter, signed by all 58 members. It demanded that the White House retract the false claims and apologize for the danger Crockett was placed in. Representative Barbara Lee read the letter aloud in Congress. Even major Senate Democrats like Elizabeth Warren, Cory Booker, and Raphael Warnock voiced strong support. Even moderate Democrats, like Joe Manchin, expressed concern, not necessarily backing the $100 million amount, but warning that political dialogue had crossed a dangerous line. But the real test, the Republican response, and that told its own story. Among Trump's closest allies, the reaction was automatic. Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene. Trump's critics labeled the lawsuit as a political gimmick and accused Jasmine Crockett of exploiting victimhood. Senator J.D. Vance remarked in a tweet that politics isn't for the weak, and if she couldn't handle a few harsh tweets, maybe she wasn't fit for the job. But other Republicans responded more cautiously. When asked by reporters, Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell refused to comment, saying flatly, "I'll let the courts take care of it." His refusal to engage was noticeable. Usually unafraid of conflict, seemed to sense the potential fallout. A few GOP members even distanced themselves from the usual party line. Senator Lisa Murkowski, often known for her independence, publicly said, "I'm not sure what the president was hoping to do with those tweets, but the result was harmful, not leadership." Representative Nancy Mace, a centrist Republican from South Carolina, also criticized the comments during a local radio interview. She said it's wrong to throw around baseless claims, especially against a colleague who has received threats as a result. She added, "We should be debating policies, not attacking each other online." Although these internal splits weren't massive, they carried symbolic importance. Crockett's legal action had shifted from being just a court case to a test of moral judgment. How would elected officials react when one of their own was publicly targeted using power irresponsibly? And it wasn't just lawmakers being questioned. Political donors also began to weigh in. Some of Trump's influential backers reportedly voiced concern that the tweets and lawsuit could alienate suburban swing voters. One longtime Republican donor, speaking to Politico anonymously, said, "We're losing women voters fast. This kind of stuff does damage. It's reckless." On the Democratic side, donations spiked. Several political action committees dedicated to supporting women candidates launched fundraising campaigns based on Crockett's story. Within 4 days of the lawsuit going public, her campaign received a noticeable uptick in small-dollar donations and new volunteers, many of them young women under 40. But what stood out most was the quiet dissatisfaction building among younger lawmakers from both parties. A bipartisan group of first-term representatives, many active online, privately expressed concern that digital attacks like these could become normal. One newly elected Republican anonymously told The Hill, "We all saw what happened to her. It could be any of us next. There's no boundary left." Tensions in Washington were already high, but Crockett's lawsuit added fuel because of its detailed evidence and her calm, assertive approach. This wasn't a cable news shouting match. It wasn't a viral clip for attention. It was a serious legal filing, one rooted in facts and built on law. That made it much harder to dismiss. For Trump, the consequences were more than just legal, they were political. His allies now faced questions they weren't ready to answer. Defenders had no facts to fall back on. And, for once, instead of angry public backlash, Trump faced a lawsuit, delivered not with fanfare but with quiet determination by a congresswoman who refused to be bullied. The battle lines were being drawn, and not everyone was standing with him. By the end of the second week, a shift had started, not just legally but publicly. Jasmine Crockett's lawsuit had evolved from a news story to a national conversation. People across the country weren't just watching as political spectators, they were asking what it really means when a sitting president uses social media to attack another elected official without proof. Polls soon reflected this change. A Reuters Ipsos poll released 10 days after the filing showed that 62% of Americans thought the president crossed the line. Among independents, the number rose to 69%, suggesting bipartisan discomfort. Even 28% of Republicans said they were uneasy with the tweets and wished he'd ease off. Meanwhile, Crockett's public support surged, especially in cities and suburbs, where younger and professional women make up a strong base. Her team reported a 36% spike in website traffic, plus thousands of supportive emails, many from people who hadn't known her before. These weren't just political insiders. They included veterans, teachers, small business owners, and nurses, Americans who saw strength in her quiet firmness. Her tone measured, factual, and calm struck a chord with those tired of the drama in DC. One letter from a 56-year-old postal worker in Ohio, shared publicly by Crockett's team, said, "You're the first person I've seen in a long time who stood up without yelling. You didn't make it a spectacle. You just said, 'That's a lie,' and went to court. That's real strength." On social media, the response shifted. TikTok creators posted breakdowns of the case, praising Crockett's poise and the clarity of her legal action. One viral video titled, "This is how you check a bully with evidence" gained 3 million views in 2 days. Another TikToker paired Trump's tweets with Crockett's press conference under the caption, "He shouted, she sued." Even Twitter, or X, where the controversy started, began to show a different tone. While the original tweets had sparked trolling and threats, now Crockett supporters were pushing back, sharing legal filings, fact checks, and stories of other women who had faced online harassment. Civil rights activists connected Crockett's lawsuit to broader conversations about online abuse, especially toward Black women. A trending campaign, #ProtectHerSeat, spotlighted female lawmakers across parties with Crockett as the symbol of a new demand for accountability. Church groups, student organizations, and civic groups hosted local events to talk about the lawsuits. Meaning, in Atlanta, a town hall titled "Free Speech or Targeted Harm" brought together legal experts and activists to explore how digital attacks can quickly turn into real-life threats, something Crockett's filing made crystal clear. Back in DC, Crockett kept her public appearances short and intentional. In a CNN interview, when asked how the attention affected her, she simply said, "I'm not trying to be a celebrity plaintiff. I just want to tell the truth and stay safe, that's all." That quote circulated widely, especially among women leaders who had dealt with online hate themselves. Behind the scenes, lawmakers from both parties began discussing new rules for how to deal with digital threats and protect elected officials from defamatory attacks online. Meanwhile, Trump still hadn't said a word about the case. The tweets remained online, untouched. But the legal process had begun, and every day without a response only made things worse in the eyes of critics. His usual style, loud and unfiltered, was now being met with something harder to dismiss: legal evidence and public exhaustion with performative politics. Even many Trump supporters admitted this situation felt different. What began as an aggressive online smear had become a nationwide discussion about leadership, accountability, and the power of unchecked speech. Jasmine Crockett didn't choose this fight. But when it arrived, she responded with clarity, facts, and firm resolve. And the country took notice.